Did you know that one of the world's most dangerous borders isn't just a line on a map? No, it's a place where tensions have been running high for decades, where any spark could ignite a global disaster. I'm talking about the India-Pakistan border, and in this video, we're going to uncover why this region is a ticking time bomb, just waiting for the wrong moment to explode. But that's not all. We'll also explore how the nuclear threat looming over this region could change the course of history forever. Are you ready? Let's dive in. The story of the India-Pakistan conflict begins long before the 21st century, all the way back in 1947, when British India was partitioned into two countries, India and Pakistan. What followed was one of the most traumatic and violent splits in modern history, and the creation of a border that would forever remain a symbol of division, hatred, and tension. The partition led to mass migrations, with millions of Hindus and Muslims forced to cross the newly drawn lines between India and Pakistan. But what did this do to the people living in Kashmir, a region caught in the crossfire? Kashmir, with its strategic importance and stunning beauty, became the focal point of one of the world's most complicated and dangerous disputes. Fast forward to today, and the India-Pakistan border is more than just a line on a map. It's the most heavily militarized border in the world, with over 1 million soldiers stationed in Kashmir alone. This area, known as the Line of Control, LOC, is a flashpoint for conflict. Why? Because both countries claim the region as their own. India controls most of the area, while Pakistan controls the rest. But this dispute has led to 3 major wars since 1947, and countless skirmishes and border clashes over the years. In 1965, India and Pakistan fought their second war over Kashmir. In 1971, they clashed once again, and this time it led to the creation of Bangladesh, with Pakistan losing a significant portion of its territory. These wars, though they didn't escalate into full-blown global conflicts, showed the world just how dangerous this region really was. Fast forward to the late 20th and early 21st centuries, and the region is still embroiled in tension. Skirmishes are a regular occurrence along the LOC, but the real danger comes from something far more powerful than guns and tanks. Something that could destroy the world as we know it: nuclear weapons. Today, both India and Pakistan are nuclear-armed nations. Each country has enough nuclear firepower to obliterate entire cities, and in a worst-case scenario, a full-scale nuclear war could wipe out millions of people and leave lasting scars on the global environment. The 1998 nuclear tests by both countries turned up the heat in an already volatile region, and since then, the threat of nuclear conflict has been an ever-present shadow over the Kashmir issue. The military presence at the border is one of the highest in the world. There are constant exchanges of gunfire and artillery shelling, and soldiers are always on high alert. The terrain itself makes it a challenging environment for both sides to control, with rugged mountains and harsh weather conditions adding to the difficulty. But it's not just the physical dangers of the region that make it a ticking time bomb. The psychological strain on the soldiers stationed here, many of whom are young, adds another layer of tension. They're ready to fight at a moment's notice, and any mistake, any miscommunication, could spark a deadly escalation. But here's the most alarming part. The India-Pakistan border is not just a flashpoint for conventional war, it is a potential trigger for nuclear war. And that's where things get truly terrifying. Stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to break down how the threat of nuclear weapons is a constant in this region, and what would happen if this conflict escalated into a full-scale nuclear war. If you're finding this video eye-opening, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got plenty more shocking truths coming your way, and you don't want to miss what's next. Also, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think India and Pakistan are heading toward a nuclear conflict, or is there still hope for peace? Now that we understand the historical and strategic importance of the India-Pakistan border, let us get to the real threat, the one that could wipe out entire populations in an instant: nuclear war. India and Pakistan, both nuclear-armed countries, have the power to destroy cities, entire regions, and potentially the entire planet should this conflict escalate to a full-scale nuclear war. But how close are we to this catastrophic reality? And what would actually happen if this border conflict spiraled into a nuclear disaster? In 1998, both India and Pakistan tested their nuclear weapons, making it clear to the world that these two countries now had the ability to cause massive destruction. But what does this mean for the future of global security? India's nuclear arsenal is estimated to include anywhere between 150 to 160 nuclear warheads, and Pakistan AS is believed to be around 165 to 170. While these numbers may seem small compared to other global powers, the devastation they can cause is unimaginable. These weapons are capable of causing massive loss of life and environmental destruction. A single nuclear bomb dropped on a major city could kill millions instantly, and the long-term effects, radiation, cancer, environmental damage, could affect generations to come. So, how could a nuclear war happen? It all starts with a small incident, a misstep at the border. Remember, tensions are already incredibly high. Both countries have soldiers stationed along the line of control, and any skirmish, whether it's a mistake or an intentional attack, could trigger an all-out war. Once the conflict escalates, both sides are likely to rely on their nuclear arsenals as a deterrent, knowing that any defeat in a conventional war could lead to the collapse of their entire military structure. The fear of losing a war could prompt both India and Pakistan to go for the nuclear option, thinking it's their only chance to avoid complete destruction. But the problem here is that once nuclear weapons are used, there's no turning back. A limited nuclear exchange between India and Pakistan could result in hundreds of thousands of casualties, and a full-scale nuclear war would leave entire regions uninhabitable for generations. To make matters worse, both countries have nuclear delivery systems, such as ballistic missiles and aircraft, that could easily target major cities. In fact, it has been said that both India and Pakistan could launch a nuclear attack within minutes of an escalation. Let's break down the potential aftermath of such an event. First, imagine the immediate destruction. Multiple cities wiped off the map. Millions of lives lost in an instant. But the consequences don't end there. The environmental impact would be catastrophic. Nuclear winter, a phenomenon where dust and soot from nuclear explosions block sunlight, drastically lowering temperatures, could cause widespread famine and destruction of ecosystems. And that's just the beginning. Radiation would contaminate soil, water, and food supplies, rendering entire areas uninhabitable. But it's not just the countries involved that would suffer. A nuclear conflict between India and Pakistan would have global repercussions. Economies around the world would collapse, and the environmental damage could affect not just South Asia, but the entire planet. Experts have warned that a nuclear war between India and Pakistan could be one of the most dangerous conflicts the world has ever seen. Some even argue that the risk is higher than the Cold War standoff between the US and the Soviet Union because of the unpredictability and proximity of the two nations. And don't forget, both countries are constantly on high alert. Their nuclear forces are ready to be launched at a moment's notice. In a region where even a small border skirmish can escalate quickly, the threat of nuclear war is very real. So, is there any hope to avoid this disaster? Can the world intervene before it's too late? While diplomatic efforts have been made, the reality is that both India and Pakistan are deeply entrenched in their positions. The Kashmir issue remains unresolved, and with both countries boasting nuclear weapons, the risks of war are higher than ever. While there have been peace talks and ceasefires in the past, the fundamental issues, religion, territory, and political ideology, have not been resolved. As long as these issues persist, the threat of nuclear war remains ever present. And this is why the world needs to pay attention. This isn't just a regional issue. If this conflict spirals out of control, it could change the fate of the entire planet. Before we explore potential solutions and ways to prevent a nuclear disaster, let me ask you, do you think there's still a chance for peace? Or is this ticking time bomb simply waiting for the wrong moment to explode? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We are going to explore even more shocking truths and what could happen if we don't take action to prevent this nuclear nightmare. Don't forget to subscribe, because in the next part, we'll dive into the global consequences of this nuclear threat and the potential diplomatic solutions that could keep us from the brink of disaster. Global implications and future of the crisis. Global reactions and future predictions. Introduction to global reactions. The India-Pakistan conflict is not just a local issue. It's one that carries global repercussions. A nuclear war between these two countries would not only affect South Asia, but could send shockwaves across the world. The international community's role in this situation is crucial, as any escalation would impact global security, trade, and diplomatic relations. Role of major powers. One of the main players in this geopolitical chessboard is the United States. The US has historically been aligned with India due to shared democratic values, and more recently, economic and strategic interests. However, it has also had to maintain a working relationship with Pakistan, especially as a key ally in the war on terror. But the US faces a dilemma. Would they intervene in the event of a nuclear escalation to prevent catastrophe? Or would their support for India risk alienating Pakistan, potentially leading to further conflict in the region? Then there's China, Pakistan's closest ally. China has its own complex relationship with India, and its involvement could add another layer of tension. China has always supported Pakistan in regional disputes, but any involvement from China could escalate the conflict far beyond South Asia, drawing in superpowers with differing interests. Finally, there's Russia, which has historically been an ally of India. However, in recent years, Russia has also strengthened its ties with Pakistan. Russia's involvement could be critical, especially in terms of mediation, as it holds influence with both countries. But the question remains, would Russia risk exacerbating the crisis for the sake of its alliances? International organizations and the role of the United Nations. The United Nations, UN, has been at the forefront of peacekeeping efforts around the world, but can it prevent a nuclear escalation between India and Pakistan? The UN has a track record of mediating peace talks between the two nations, but its effectiveness is often limited when both sides are determined to uphold their territorial claims. In the past, UN resolutions have called for peaceful resolutions, but with both India and Pakistan now nuclear-armed, the potential for global intervention has become more urgent. What the UN needs is a stronger mandate from major powers to enforce disarmament treaties or at least freeze any further nuclear development. Future predictions. Can this conflict be stopped? Experts have mixed opinions about the future of this conflict. Some believe that diplomatic efforts will eventually yield results, as both countries have shown a willingness to engage in peace talks at various times. Others, however, argue that nationalism and political pressures are too entrenched for any meaningful peace agreement. The nuclear threat is undeniable, and both countries continue to increase their military readiness. But can diplomacy hold back the threat of war? Or will both sides eventually be forced into a catastrophic confrontation? The world cannot afford to wait for this conflict to reach a boiling point. The stakes are higher than ever before, And with the future of humanity at risk, the international community must act now to prevent a nuclear nightmare. Solutions and global perspectives. Diplomatic solutions and possibilities for peace. The importance of diplomacy. Despite the overwhelming risks, there is still hope for peace. The key to preventing a nuclear war is diplomacy. Both India and Pakistan have engaged in talks over the years, and though many of these efforts have failed, the importance of dialogue cannot be overstated. India and Pakistan have been involved in various peace processes, from the Lahore Declaration in 1999 to the Shimla Agreement in 1972. While these agreements often stall due to entrenched positions, there have been moments of cooperation that offer a glimmer of hope. For peace to take hold, both sides must be willing to compromise on key issues. One potential solution is to create a neutral space for dialogue, where both nations can come together without the pressure of immediate territorial disputes. This is where international intervention, particularly from neutral third-party countries, could be helpful. The role of the international community. Countries like the United States, China, and Russia have the power to act as mediators. Their involvement could bring both India and Pakistan back to the negotiating table. But diplomatic solutions require a commitment to peace and security, not just from the countries involved, but from the world community as a whole. There are also efforts at the grassroots level to promote peace. Movements in both India and Pakistan, focusing on trade, cultural exchange, and education, could serve as a foundation for building trust and bridging the gap between these two nations. These kinds of initiatives could lower tensions and create new avenues for cooperation, nuclear disarmament, and arms control. One of the most effective ways to ensure lasting peace is through nuclear disarmament. Both India and Pakistan's nuclear programs are not just a threat to each other, but to global security. A nuclear-free South Asia should be the ultimate goal, and the international community can help by offering incentives for disarmament. While both countries have resisted international calls to limit their nuclear arsenals, the idea of creating a nuclear-free zone in South Asia remains a possibility. This would require serious commitment from both nations, as well as significant political will. Social and cultural efforts for peace. While political and diplomatic efforts are crucial, social and cultural initiatives are also key to building lasting peace. There is a growing movement in both India and Pakistan for peace. People-to-people contacts, cultural exchanges, and youth programs can create a more peaceful future. These grassroots efforts are not just about dialogue between governments, but also about fostering understanding between ordinary people. When communities on both sides begin to see each other as neighbors rather than enemies, the path to peace becomes much more achievable. Conclusion and final thoughts. Final thoughts and the path forward. Conclusion of the crisis. We've explored the complex and deeply entrenched nature of the India-Pakistan conflict, with its roots in history, politics, and nuclear threats. The reality is that we stand at a crossroads. The choices made today will shape the future of South Asia and the world. Nuclear weapons, while powerful, are not the solution. In fact, they are the ultimate danger. The world cannot afford to let this conflict spiral out of control. There is still hope for diplomacy, for peaceful resolution, but it requires effort, compromise, and trust from both sides, with significant international support. Global responsibility and call to action. The international community must act, not just for the sake of India and Pakistan, but for the sake of the world. The threat of nuclear war is not a problem that can be ignored. It is a ticking time bomb that affects us all. The question is, will we step up in time to prevent catastrophe? Now is the time for action. Now is the time to push for peace, for cooperation, and for a future where nuclear weapons are no longer a threat to humanity, Thank you for joining us in this deep dive into one of the most dangerous geopolitical issues of our time. If you believe that peace can be achieved in this region, or if you want to learn more about global conflicts and solutions, don't forget to subscribe and join the conversation. Leave your thoughts and questions in the comments below. What do you think is the best path forward for India and Pakistan? Can diplomacy and trust overcome decades of tension? We look forward to hearing your opinions.